Hello, members. Tom Morrison here from the great state of Nashville, Tennessee at the MTI corporate offices. We welcome you today to the MTI Live webcast where we're going to touch on the big things going in the past 3 months on technical specifications and audit compliance. And there's a lot of stuff going on there. So today we have with us Ed Engelhardt from Solar Atmospheres, Bob Ferry from FPM Heat Treating, and Joanna Lisa from Continental Heat Treating in California. And Ed, Bob, any of y'all got anything to say as we go out? Just welcome the members.
Well, we're glad you're here, and we hope we can provide you with some useful information to take back to your shops.
Bob, real quick, before we get into the details, share from your perspective why it's important for people to tune in to these webcasts every single quarter when we have them.
Okay, so basically, we do a lot of boots on the ground at all of these committee meetings. That these committees are really formulating the specifications that heat treaters have to follow. And so we can provide some insight to heat treaters on what's coming down the road. And even our associate suppliers for MTI, they can get some insight on, where is it that they have to start focusing to help the heat treat community meet all of these other requirements, whether it be in equipment or software or controls or whatever. I think it's just invaluable information to get firsthand instead of, waiting until the spec comes out and then you react to it. You know what I mean? So yeah, we provide a lot of great information, I think, for everybody to pay attention to. And it also gives them an opportunity that if they have any concerns about what's going on, they could just field that to us, and we can try to make a difference if we agree with what they're saying at the committee level. So, I think it's all good.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've seen from MTI's perspective of kind of being involved in the committee at a management team level is getting information way ahead of time when you used to get it when the spec came out. And in some cases, some people found out about it because they didn't look at the spec very closely. They found out about it at audit time. And that's the last place you want to find out that you're out of compliance. Especially given the fact that my first Nadcap meeting and AMEC meeting was in 2009. And guess what they were talking about? Auditor consistency. If you think the spec says A plus B equals C, the last thing you want to find out at audit is that the auditor interprets it to be A plus B equals D. Finding, boom, done. I think the second thing I think that's very important about these meetings is being able to learn how to effectively push back on a finding that you feel is voided or should not be there. And I think that you'll report that we had a lot of discussion on that in this past technical meeting before Nadcap got going on. A lot of people are very interested in hearing what people had to say on how you push back, because our surveys from members really say many people they got a little bit of fear and irritating the auditor on pushing back because they're scared of what ramifications come from that. But that's not the case. I'm excited for y'all to report what y'all have learned in that area too. But before we jump into some of that, Bob, why don't we jump into a lot of people are in the automotive world that watch this video, and you got CQI-9 that you're very involved with. So give us an update on what's going on there.
Yeah. So just to tag on what you just said, you're getting information not only from your fellow heat treaters, but also from the OEMs that are at these meetings, and the Nadcap auditors attend all of these meetings. So they all chime in and give you great insight on how you can run or manage your business, and give you a forward look on what's coming down the road. So yeah, all good. Okay, so CQI-9. Of course, we're still going through the review, the rewrite of the document. We're coming out with working on revision 5. They still are planning on trying to make that happen by the end of next year. So we've already completed process tables A, E, L, and H. So those are all done. We're still working on process table B. That's nitriding and FNC. And one of the things that we're going to add to that process table is we're going to put some requirements in there for monitoring your pre and post oxidation treatments, because that seems to be, a big thing now with FNC processing is your post oxidation, and in many cases, pre oxidation is performed. So they're going to put some requirements on that for monitoring that in the industry. Of course, we're working on process table D, which is induction, and they're going to add some control checks for rotational speed and feed rates on induction equipment. So as everybody knows, typically if you're doing induction, you're rotating the parts or you're feeding them through an induction coil somehow, and it's pretty important to monitor that process or that feed rate or rotational speed. So you're going to see some requirements for that on process table D coming out. I think process table E that was also completed, and we're continuing to update that pyrometry section. It seems to go the same way as AMS 2750. When you talk about pyrometry and heat treat, it's never an easy review. You're always adding things or improving things. So I don't have enough information on that to share with you what might be coming down the pike, but we're just going through it at this point.
So they use the same 2750 spec?
They do not. Okay, so AMS CQI-9 started with using the AMS 2750D revision back in the day when CQI-9 first got established. They kind of developed their heat pyrometry specification off of that spec. But today, and they've since decoupled from AMS 2750. So now they have their own pyrometry requirements in the CQI-9 document. And so a lot of the things in the CQI-9 document are probably more lenient, not as restrictive as AMS 2750, but it's a good guideline for heat treaters in the automotive industry for processing automotive parts.
Awesome. Is that it for CQI-9? Do you see anything coming down the pike? And when will this revision be done again?
Okay, so they're looking at getting this thing completed, at least to move to, the approval committee by the end of next year. So we've still, we've got a road ahead of us here. This next year is going to be like a whirlwind to make that happen. But we're pushing hard to make that happen.
So how long does it sit before they start another revision?
So they let it sit typically, 5 years. They're in that 5-year cycle as well from the date that it comes out. And during that time, even after it comes out, if there's some issues with the specification, you just have to send those to AIAG, and they will send it to the appropriate committee, because the committee, they might not meet every month, but they'll meet once a quarter,
right,
and just go over any issues that came up based on the latest revision, right? So there's still some work that gets done, but it's not at the frequency that we're doing right now. Like, we have monthly meetings for the whole committee, and then we're doing every other week meetings on the sub-team committees. So there's a lot of activity going on for, volunteer work.
Well, so I'm interested. So we just came from the AMEC Committee in Fort Worth, and we've all been to some Nadcap meetings. So is the AMEC, is the CQI-9, what is the level of intensity or debate that goes on in those meetings compared to what you saw at AMEC and then Nadcap.
Yeah, so you have the OEMs on the calls, so I they have their own areas that they're really focused on, that they really have opinions on as to what should be restricted more than others. So you can get the OEMs going at each other with, well, hell, I believe this should happen, but I don't think it's the intensity that you can see at a NADCAP meeting, because
Right.
those guys just piss you off sometimes.
It gets a little ornery in there on occasions, I can tell you for sure.
Yeah. So it isn't that bad, because they're all in there for the common goal of improving
Right.
the industry. Is what they're
Right.
trying to do, and they're trying to cover not only the people with the latest technology, but they still have suppliers in countries that don't have the latest technology. And
Right.
so they're trying to make sure that they're still able to process parts and still meet the requirements.
So you say the word technology. Let me ask you. So is additive manufacturing and 3D printing and things like AI, is that making its way into the automotive world in your world?
Certainly, they're talking about additive manufacturing, but it's not involved in our CQI-9 standard. I think that's a separate part of AIAG. So
Got you.
yeah, we're not doing anything with that at this time.
Okay. So anything else?
No, that's about the only update I have for CQI-9.
All right, Bob. Well, I appreciate your time and efforts that you put. I know you spend a lot of time and efforts in the automotive world on that spec, and I appreciate your work on behalf of MTI to make
Yep.
it where it's fair and reasonable and not onerous like some specs can be.
Thank you.
Awesome. Well, next on the docket is ASTM. One of our Stephen Keckler from ThermTech, who normally gives the report, emailed us today. He's not feeling well, so everybody keep him in your thoughts. He's got the bug as this weather's changing. So we got Mr. Ed Engelhardt from Solar is going to kind of fill in and give a brief update on ASTM. So Ed, what you got to say?
Well, unfortunately, I was unable to go to the November meeting, so I don't have the latest information.
Okay, enough said. No, just joking.
Yeah, really. I did get a conference call into E20, which is the thermocouple and temperature measurement crew. A lot of that was focused around really high temperature thermocouple technology. There's some changes coming there. Most of those are temperatures that start at 2,500 degrees and go on up. So it's not, there may be those of us in the membership who are dealing with those temperatures, but probably not that many. In harness testing, from the minutes that I've read up until the November meeting, no big changes coming through the E28 crowd for E18, the harness testing. I do know from the last update that Stephen was talking about E8 and E92 getting some changes. And I believe at that time he didn't feel that anything in there was going to be, particularly problematic for those of us who are users of those specs. Otherwise, I've not heard a lot, and I apologize for not being more up to date with it, but November was not a good month for travel for me, so I missed out on that. I'll hopefully get back on that trail next year and be a little more on top of things.
Awesome, man. Well, thank you for your time on that and giving an update. So one of the things I want to break in and say here is, part of one of the powers of MTI is having a strong voice in all these committee hearings and these groups to make sure that your voice and your thoughts and comments are represented. And ASTM is one of those areas where we probably need to have more involvement. And, MTI is really working hard to build an army, a team of people that are at these meetings, listening in and getting feedback and providing it to us. We can report out here so before it happens what you need to do and how you need to act. So if any of you are ever interested in potentially being involved with ASTM, you can email me personally at tom@heattreat.net. I'll put it in the chat room, but tom@heattreat.net. That you would like to be involved in ASTM, like more information, I'll get you to Stephen Keckler he's very involved with it, and he can point you to the right direction. The more people we have involved in these committees, it's where you get to make the rules you're going to live by. So people, this upper echelon of people don't make the rules and they filter them down to you. It's people like you every day that get up, go to these meetings and make these rules up so you get to live by those. So if you're interested, email me at tom@heattreat.net and I'll correct you down the right path to get you involved with ASTM meetings and these specifications. So thank you very much again, Ed, for your time on that.
Yeah,
so
just to follow up real quick. At ASTM, a lot of these meetings overlap with one another. So if you're just one individual and you have a lot of interest, you just have to pick something and fly with it and let the other one go. So having more parties involved from MTI to go to the specific meetings and report on them would be very, very helpful to us.
Awesome, Ed. Thank you very much for that. So Ed, let's just stay with you because I know you both, you and Ed or Bob was at the is our lighting team not doing their job?
Yeah. I'm at the Michigan in one of the offices, and it has a timed light. If you don't move, it shuts down. Sorry about that.
It's all right, man. The sensors are crazy, right?
Yeah, they
So
are.
both Ed and Bob, you were both at the AMEC meeting with me and many of our other members. And Ed, we'll let you start, and Ed, Bob, you chime in. Haven't been there as well, but Ed, what's the latest on all the different specs they're looking at?
Oh my goodness. Well, there is a lot going on. I'll put a shameless plug in for my sponsorship, which is AMS 2769 for vacuum heat treating. It's due for 5-year review. And any of you at all who want to make some input to that, I'm taking on anything that shows up. So please feel free to email me your concerns, and I'll make sure that I put them in the document for review by AMEC. 2750 is on a very short 2-year cycle. So I might happen to be on that sub team. We're taking comments for revision H, which is current, and trying to get them starting to lay them out to further refine the document. I do think H is for the most part, a cleaner, easier to read and easier to follow right than previous editions. And we intend to keep that going. So that's, if you have any comments again on 2750, you can contact me or Tom, and we can make sure that those comments get filtered along to the sub team doing the work on that. 2759, I believe Sarah Lombardo is on this call. She's heading up the rewrite or next revision of AMS 2759, the root document, and that's gotten a lot of commentary that we're wading through. We took a stab at trying to get comment resolution completed in Fort Worth, and well, there were just so many, it wasn't possible. And there were some parties that we had hoped to be there that weren't. So that's going to be ongoing for a while. Sarah does a fabulous job of organizing those comments and getting them presented. And again, we invite you to reach out to Sarah by whatever means you can to let her know what's on your mind about it. They're trying to think of what other, there's a push among the primes to open up 2801 for titanium. There's some things they didn't like about the last revision. Of course, they didn't say anything until after we published it and had gone through all the comment resolution. So there's some chance that that's going to get done earlier, although I think Kevin at SAE is going to do his best to make sure it stays on a 5-year cycle. So hopefully that goes. There will be a raft of 2759 slash specs getting opened up for 5-year review over the next 12 months. So you're going to be hearing more about that as well. It's
going to be interesting to see how those go, because I came on board with AMEC around 2009 or 10, and I think it was like, I mean, if this is 2019, if this is the 5-year return, they were talking about 2759 and all the slashes forever.
Oh, it took a long time. It
was like 7 or 8 years.
Yeah, it was a long, painful process. And it was Lee Gerhardt was the chairman at the time. And boy, he did yeoman's work on getting through that mess because they really needed an overhaul. And he made sure that happened. But they can be further refined, and we need your commentary to take back to AMEC to be sure we can make a better document out of it. I was going to say the only other area that I can recall, and Tom, and Bob, let me know if I'm missing something, but there's a lot of discussion about hydrogen embrittlement bakeout, the tensile strength levels required that would require a bakeout. And we had some people come online on conference calls who are experts in aerospace fasteners, lobbying for their point of view. And I don't know that it's a big deal for most of us in the commercial heat treat world. There may be a few of us that actually deal with those fasteners on a high volume basis, but it did chew up quite a lot of time in the meeting. I don't know, Bob, Tom, what have I missed here?
Yeah, for sure. I mean, well, again, it seemed like some people through the fastener industry were trying to present data to get the hydrogen embrittlement relief spec, that /9, changed so that you don't have to bake parts. If your hardness, it was a tensile range at 180 KSI, but 40
currently it's 180, and people are lobbying for it to stay at 150.
Yeah, so there was a rebuttal presentation by someone from the aerospace industry, Norm, I forgot what his last name, but he came up with a rebuttal because he said, they've tried to do this before, but he has been on failure sites where, they've attributed hydrogen embrittlement on some bolts that were 35 Rockwell C. So he's totally against changing that. And to be quite honest with you, I am too. I think, basically what you're talking about is a grade 8 bolt. And grade 8 is a high strength bolt that is used in a variety of applications, not only aerospace, but it's in bridges, it's in many important areas. So, we have found that by having them baked right after plating operations is a very good thing to do, and has reduced the amount of failures that they've had out in the field. So when I was sitting next to a guy he happened to be from Lockheed, and he heard what they were trying to do, and he's like shaking his head. He said, "That's never going to fly with us." So I can see how this is not going to. I can't see this moving forward, but for whatever reason, I think it's the platers that want this relieved so that they don't have to bake grade 8 bolts. And I'm like, that doesn't make sense. So that was that one. They also on the 2750, one of the things that they're working on, Doug is working on, is he's going to look at the non-expendable thermocouples, base metal thermocouples, and to see if he's doing some data right now. He's gathering some data on the life of these non-expendable base metal thermocouples based on their size, their diameter.
Right. Wire thickness,
the wire thickness, right? Because what they suspect or what they found is that if you've got real thin wire or thin thermocouple wire, non-expendables, that they don't last as long as what we're allowing on the specification. So that's one thing to look out for in the future. I think he's going to come in with some data to show us what the life expectancy can be, but that's one of the things that they're going to look at changing in the new 2750 revision.
The next revision. Yeah, good point. Thanks for bringing that up, Bob.
Yeah. Now, another one that we did was the 1962.
Yeah, I was going to mention that.
Yeah, ARP 1962. Yep.
Tom, why don't you tell us all about it? You're pretty successful.
Go. That's your baby.
Well, I mean, we got 17 minor editorial comments and one technical comment. It looks like that we got them all solidified and resolved to the people that made the comments issues. And I think it's going to go out for a 14-day ballot just to give it one more time, and then after that, if there's no big deals, then they'll look to publish that. So hopefully that'll be done in the first quarter next year. But no drastic changes, just some fine tuning, changing some wording to make it pretty consistent throughout the document. But what I always love to hear is that MTI's online training is it complies with all the stuff that we've done. So any of you that are not using MTI's training for your stuff, you need to check into that, and you can contact us at the office to let us talk to you about that. But what was exciting, guys, about that meeting was we had a record 53 people. I've been going to AMEC, like I said, since 2009. We're good if we get 35 people tops at these meetings, and we had 53 people, including you two, and it was just so exciting to see that vibe there and that and the interest and participation from so many people. It was really good.
It was good. It was real good.
Yeah, I thought it was a great meeting. I thought everybody was engaged. It seemed like in that meeting, which was kind of cool.
It was
from everybody's.
Well, I think it's fun for a first timer because whenever they sit down, they realize that we're actually getting to write this, not write it, but you're getting to review and suggest and write the spec that we get to get audited to, which is why we got to be involved in this. And when I started coming in 2009, maybe 30% of the room was MTI members, and the rest were OEMs and suppliers. And now the room is always at least half to 60% MTI member commercial heat treaters. I mean, MTI members have stepped up and stepped into this process to just make it good.
Yep.
Yeah.
It's been a very big change.
Sure. Well, any other comments on the AMEC meeting?
Not at the moment, unless there's something in the chat someone brought up.
No, I haven't seen anything yet. So, all right. Well, with that, when you write the rules, guess what? You got to get audited to the rules, and who in the world does that but Nadcap? And we've had a couple of Nadcap meetings this past year, and we had the one in October. And so, Bob, I'll let you start off by kind of piecing through. Ed, you can chime in, and then we'll lead to Joanna, Lisa, who's on the call. She'll tell us about the MMC and stuff and the heat treat task group. So, Bob, take her away.
Yeah. So with Nadcap, I mean, they did the majority of the meeting that was besides the normal things that they go through, auditor consistency and all of that, and they're in what they go over, but they were spending a lot of time on the AC 7102/8, which is the checklist for pyrometry, right? So we took like 2.5, maybe 3 hours to go over that thing with any issues that had come up or any comments that were made on it. So I think that one, is that going to come back out for ballot, Ed, after he
There's still a sub-team working on comment resolution with Will Farnell. We had one meeting it's a couple of weeks ago, just the week before Thanksgiving, and we got maybe halfway or so through the ones that were remaining, and we have some more to go through yet. So we'll probably have another meeting maybe in early December. And hopefully by the time we get through these meetings, we'll be in a good place to have a ballot come up. So it's still being worked, and there is a lot there that we're wading through at the moment.
I see Joanna's got her hand up on her screen. Joanna, do you have a question or something on that?
There is an additional comment resolution scheduled for the 9th of December. So it has a very, very long list of invitees. So if you have received that invitation, I insist that you participate, because there are a lot of decisions being made. There are technical comments that I don't believe are being addressed fully or even at all. And so I think it's important that we have as many voices present as possible.
So I will follow that up, Joanna, with, if you're listening to this, if you have something to say, never not say it because you don't think no one listens. MTI, with these people, are carrying the message, and the more people we have engaged and involved, the stronger the voice. So if you have something to say on it, please get it in the hands of the people that need, Joanna, Bob, or Ed, so they can deliver that message for sure.
Yep.
Yeah. So thank you, Joanna. I had just checked my calendar. Yeah. So that one's on Monday the 9th.
The Monday the 9th, yeah.
But they also have a 7102/5 meeting, sub-team meeting coming up tomorrow, I think. And that one, let's see, I'm still trying to get released in 2025. Jeff is hopeful, but revising the MOUs between heat treat and MTL. So we're still working on that with trying to get our own specification for, or our own checklist, I should say, for trying to meet the requirements of not only hardness testing, but mechanical testing as well. And that one is still kind of hanging out there where we haven't come to any agreement with being able to move off this place where we're at. So we're hoping with this meeting tomorrow that we're going to be able to make some headway on, what direction we need to go to at this point after we get more information from Jeff.
Yeah.
Any comments on that one, Joanna?
Yes, I do have some comments. As part of the objection to Airbus's objection to heat treating having their own checklist 7102/5, it was stated in the task group meeting that there were issues with the MOUs themselves, of which there are 5. I thought there were only 3, but I was incorrect. And that neither side was in compliance with the requirements of the OP governing MOUs. So it was kicked up to planning and ops. Jeff Koss, the new heat treat task group chair, brought it to planning and ops, and it was decided that it really should go to steering. So it was addressed again in steering. A sub-team for that was formed. Unfortunately, the moderator for that is somewhat misinformed in that the goal of that sub-team is to resolve the issues between MTL and heat treat. That is not the case. The issue is, are we in compliance with the MOUs, coupled with the fact that that OP does not have any teeth as it relates to lack of compliance for the participants in an MOU. We had a meeting scheduled for the day before Thanksgiving. As I expected, it would probably not be well attended because of its proximity to the holiday. That did indeed turn out to be the case. We rescheduled the meeting for the 17th of November because I am on that sub-team. And so we will be working the MOU side of the issue as it relates to a little bit of the rancor that continues to exist between MTL and heat treat. So I am working on that at the moment via the sub-team.
Yeah. So I appreciate your efforts on that, Joanna, because it's actually a mess. The more you dig in, the more you see how messed up this is. Not only aren't we following what we're supposed to be doing as a heat treat task group, but neither is MTL on their end when they're using some of our checklists. So yeah, it's going to be interesting to see where this thing winds up, but right now I haven't seen it going any place good.
No, not at this point.
Um,
So I see we had a chat comment from Jennifer Bendel.
Yeah, she's asking if you get an NCR that you don't agree with, then you take it to the task group and don't agree with that. What are the steps that you can do to have that relooked at?
Well, you can appeal it. Right off the top of my head, I don't remember the OP for that. Johanna might have it. What do you say, Johanna?
Don't have the number of the OP handy, but I'm looking it up as I'm speaking here. There's an additional opportunity, and that would be governed by the Ethics and Appeals OP, the number of which, like I said, I'm appeals. That would be OP 1113. So the mechanisms in place for appealing the task group's decision is governed by that document. My cautionary statement is if it is a technical issue, I seriously doubt that the Ethics and Appeals Committee will overrule the task group decision. But if it's a procedural issue, they will address that. So you have to be very careful in how you are phrasing your appeal because they'll follow the task group if it's technical.
Yeah.
Yeah,
and
good
that's
luck, Jennifer.
yeah, and that's after you've already discussed it with your auditor and then with the staff engineer
And the
and
subscribers.
even your subscriber. Like if it's a particular subscriber issue, hopefully you've dealt with, contacted them to see if they can give you any leniency in that as well. And that would avoid this whole appeal process. But once you've gone through all of that and none of that has worked and you still feel that you're justified in your feelings, then you go through the appeals process, right? Okay.
All right. Anything else on the Nadcap meeting that you think is pertinent?
I think we shift over now at this point to Joanne. Do you have an update on the MMC, Nadcap Management Council?
Oh, yes, I do, of course.
And let me say it before you say it. Read the minutes.
Absolutely.
Yeah, there you go.
And
Yeah.
on that topic, I checked eAuditNet this morning, and there are no minutes posted for any task group or any NMC committee. eAuditNet says that they will be posted by the 20th of December.
Yep, that's what I read too.
So,
Yeah, we had the meeting in October. I mean,
I know it's rather frustrating.
Have they heard of AI?
Well, I will get to the customer satisfaction survey once I get to continuous improvement, and I will address the minutes issue there. Just to let everyone know, as of the June meeting, the NMC agenda format had changed, and we were given the opportunity to have working sessions between the committee meetings. Those working sessions are primarily geared towards any sub-team activity that needs to be addressed in person rather than online, because I find that online is not the most effective way to do these things quite often. So that format has been, I think, very effective, and we've actually gotten quite a bit of things done. One of the issues that came up as part of the customer satisfaction survey is they felt that because the steering committee meetings were being held at the end of the week, they're instead of earlier in the week, there might be issues that weren't properly addressed. And so what they did was they added a new steering committee meeting at the beginning and the closing steering meeting at the end. And I think that's also been effective. One of the issues in the first opening steering meeting had to do with the number of audits being conducted. For 2022, we were well under the goal of 6,400 at 4,549. In 2023, we were above the goal of 6,100 at 6,355. And for 2024, year to date, we are exceeding the goal of 5,400 at 5,662. This dovetails into the backlog that has been, amazingly enough, whittled down to some degree, so that we've had some success in that regard in terms of exceeding some of the goals for the last couple of years. They anticipate that there will be zero backlog by 12/31/25. So we're still behind, but it is getting whittled down. There was also discussion about the board of directors issues with the fact that EAN seems to be having continuing issues. So the decision has been made that the auditor segment of EAM will be any changes or the new auditor EAN page will be suspended until they get both the auditee and the subscriber issues resolved that are continuing to exist. And the board of directors is also concerned about metrics, and we'll get to that. There's also there's been a proposal that there be something akin to a partial suspension versus a full suspension of an accreditation. That sub-team has not been doing much activity, unfortunately. So I'll go on to continuous improvement. I referred to the customer satisfaction survey. There are quite a number of issues that were brought to the fore during that survey that have not yet been addressed. They have meted out some of those tasks to different committees. And one of those is notification. Well, it's a communication issue. There are a lot of communication issues that both oddities and subscribers have been not happy with. Things such as being notified of procedure changes, and they continue to work some of those issues as it relates to the customer satisfaction survey. But it seems as if the progress has not been as good as we'd all like it to be, as evidenced by the fact that the minutes still haven't been posted. On the metrics committee, there is a lot of activity. They are examining whether the current metrics are valid. We have established that some of them really have no value added to the program, so we are either deleting metrics, adding metrics, revising the definitions of those metrics, and so on. There's also an effort on the part of Boeing to look at a metric regarding accreditation length stability, meaning for those suppliers who are on merit, do they continue to retain their merit status? Boeing is looking back as far as 6 audits to examine whether suppliers' merit status is stable. It's Boeing's opinion that that's a good indicator of the health of the system, and that is continuing to be worked. Flow down survey. This is something I've been working on, I think now almost 2 years. During the continuous improvement meeting, I asked yet again for a date certain as to when that survey would go out to suppliers. I was told that it would be by week's end, meaning the end of the meeting. I have yet to see it. I have several emails in asking for the absolute date certain. Maybe that's a different definition. We'll see what happens. 91% of suppliers are on merit. There still continue to be issues with subscriber participation. One of the metrics that they monitor is observation audits. There are 63 subscribers, only 30 of which who have conducted observation audits for the year. And so there will be some attention paid to that. Standardization. There are few things happening there, not the least of which is type P advisories. It's no one's surprise that we're still somewhere in the neighborhood of 1,500 type Ps a year. We are still at the point where only one of those type Ps has been converted to type C. The good news is that as of an NMC online meeting a couple of weeks ago, there is some dissatisfaction with this process, and on the part of the subscribers, I might point out. And so that probably will be a point of very much discussion at the the February meeting. There was also a movement on the rejecting observers. There was a particular supplier who claimed that the reason they were rejecting an observer was because they were, quotes, a direct competitor. So the standardization committee decided that it was necessary to define a direct competitor. I was on that sub-team. That definition has been completed, and so look for a revision to OP 1103 to include that direct competitor definition. Planning and ops. This goes back to the MOU situation. This is a can of worms. MOU situation is not the only issue coming up in planning and ops. There's also the issue that the AQS task group is rather unhappy with the fact that AC 7000 continues to encroach on quality management system issues, all of which should be addressed by the AQS task group, not by NMC and their AC 7000 checklist. That's still under debate. That debate will continue. I anticipate that there will be a revision to AC 7000 coming out shortly. That revision will now include the requirement that if you have changes to ownership via T Form 1111 notification, if you have not submitted that T Form 1111, there will be an additional finding for not having done so within a 60-day window from the date of that change. Let's see. During globalization, they introduced a new format for NMC agendas and minutes that will now mirror the format of task group agendas. There was discussion regarding splitting the MMM task group up, but that has been postponed until they can get additional technical information from the powder manufacturers. And if you just give me a moment, I will review here very quickly, make sure I've covered everything. I think I have addressed everything that I plan to address. Any questions?
Should we
Yeah.
read the minutes? Couldn't help it,
Yes,
Joanna. Couldn't
please.
help it. Couldn't help it.
Did
Yep.
you want to say anything about the QMS cause code activities?
Oh, Ed, thank you so much. It's staring right here at me. How did I miss it? Thank you.
No,
Okay, so there's another Boeing movement afoot, and that it has to do with cost codes. This goes back several meetings whereby Boeing requested that PRI be the responsible party for enforcing Boeing's operational risk management program. That did not go over well, so there was a compromise point, which was instead of going to that degree, PRI would implement a new feature. I'm using air quotes on the feature part within eAuditNet when NCR responses are posted. Currently, EAN has 3 elements that the auditor assigns to each NCR when they post that NCR. We are now going to have significantly more options, and those options will be shifted to the supplier rather than the staff engineer or the auditor. Those cause codes are based on the elements of 9100, and within each of those paragraphs of 9100, there will be subtopics within there. So we'll just use support as an example. So when the auditee responds to their NCR, in addition to the requirement for completing the auditor feedback, each NCR will have to be assigned a cause code and then a sub-cause code before they're able to post their NCR response. At the October meeting, we had, I want to say 9 cause codes and probably, let's just say 50 subtopics. We significantly whittled those down to something under 6 for all of the cause code, the subtopics down to 6 for the cause codes. We had a meeting on Monday of this week, and we have refined those even further for 2 of the paragraphs of 9100. We have another meeting scheduled. I believe it's on the 16th, and we will continue to whittle those down. And I think we made significant progress on trying to make this not quite so onerous on the part of the supplier, because 50 different selections is crazy.
Yeah.
Based on the fact that any enhancements to eAuditNet, other than addressing the issues that are limiting people's ability to use the website properly, I don't anticipate that the cause codes will be something that will be coming up soon, not just because the sub-team hasn't completed our task, but also because EA enhancements have been postponed. So you may not see it for a year, but it is definitely coming down the pike. So thank you, Ed.
Oh, yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Joanna, for all that report. You're always so informative with stuff. We appreciate your involvement with the Nadcap, the whole thing. It's been great to have you a part of that. So, Joanna, Ed, and Bob, there's no questions, but anything in your mind that you would say, if you're going to look at anything between now and the next 3 months in your audit participation, any encouragement to the members listening out there, knowing what you know about what's coming down the pipe?
Well, do lots of prep. I mean, be thorough when you prepare for these audits, because the more you do up front and fix before the auditor gets there, the less they're going to have to find. And secondly, if you get written findings, do not hesitate to push back if you think they are not valid. I think one of the metrics that showed up this last time was out of a quarter, I think it was like 500 and some audits. There were 100 findings out of 500 audits that were voided by staff engineers. And those 100 findings occurred in 75 audits, which means that when a finding is determined to be invalid by the supplier and they push back on it, this is likely as not, there's going to be another one there, because these things seem to be kind of auditor specific. I just was sitting in on Nadcap audit here in our Michigan shop this week. It just concluded. And the auditor was on the phone and doing responses through Google Chat on findings that were popping up that were clearly invalid, and voicing his concern along with those of other auditors that were sharing the Google Chat with them. And his comment was that this voiding of findings is starting to become an almost epidemic thing, because auditors feel like if they don't write a finding, they're going to be seen as not performing by PRI. So my comment is, if it's bogus, you got to go tooth and nail to get it out. Because if you don't, and it gets to the staff engineer, they're not going to contest it, even if they know it's not valid.
Yeah.
And that's, to me, that is an unacceptable state of affairs at the staff engineer level. But that's a discussion for another day. In the meantime, as suppliers, we have to be sure about what a finding is and if it's valid or not valid. And when it's not, you start the battle right away and push as hard as you can.
Yeah. Yeah, I would agree, especially when the auditor is on site. That's where you need to start addressing it and take an issue, because as Ed had mentioned, there have been a lot of voided findings, and that is just that came from a Nadcap auditor, because he was just at the audit training in October, auditor training, and he just mentioned that. And quite honestly, from Joanna's report, when she's saying that, all right, PRI is catching up on their backlog of audits, it sounds to me like they've got a lot of new auditors.
They do. And the conversations that we overheard during our Nadcap audit this week were auditors who, I mean, I couldn't believe the stuff he was telling me, that these auditors were writing up. They didn't even have a place to hang them. The saddest part was that these things were going to the task group for resolution, and the subscribing primes were just as wrong as the auditor. So don't assume that because the prime pushes back that it's still a valid or that your complaint is not valid. It is, because they probably know less about it than you do. So we're the process experts about what we do and how we do it and how we respond to these questions in the audit. And you need to carry that all the way through until you can kill those things dead.
Yeah, and they do have, I know they have one pretty new staff engineer.
Yeah, in Chin, yeah.
Yeah. So, I mean, he's still got some learning to do through this whole process. And quite honestly, some of the older staff engineers are kind of backed out of the system. So, yeah, it's in flux right now, and because of that, I think that's what's causing some of these findings that aren't necessarily accurate.
I think when you look at the Nadcap meetings itself, anybody listening in or who hears this at a later date, because this is being recorded and be pushed out tonight on our online community, should be shown to every quality person in a quality department. But if you're not coming to the Nadcap meetings, you need to get there. It's the best investment in this process because you get to connect with the people on a personal basis. Two things that happen on site that are amazing that people love is, if you're a member, MTI has a member-only technical meeting before the first day on Monday from 1:30 to 3:30, where Ed and Bob lead for 2 hours discussion on all these issues. And this past meeting, the big topic was that very thing: how to push back on an auditor and not put yourself in a dire position. So coming to that, and then on Tuesday night, the second night, for 2 hours, we have a reception that's a less informal thing after the first day that give people a chance to really talk about what did you hear today and what are we learning and what do we need to do. So MTI is in the middle of this stuff, and we're there to be a conduit to help you get involved and listen and learn so that you can be. And one of the big things, Bob and Ed and Jana, I'm looking to see happening is AI develops. And AI takes human error out of the equation as AI penetrates the whole Nadcap audit system, and from the heat treater side, where they're doing more with AI that helps them do things more perfectly. That's going to make audit findings less. And you got new auditors trying to navigate that ocean, the waves of that. What does that mean for the types of findings that you're going to be looking for and writing up?
Okay, yeah.
Because AI is going to help minimize the number of audits because you're going to minimize human error. So it's going to be interesting to see how that plays out. AI is moving fast in a lot of industries. Don't know how fast it'll move here, but as it does move, it's going to create positive things for a heat treater, I think, if they get them tuned into it.
Yeah, we're hoping that does help improve how we run our operations and improve our processes. But we didn't mention that the next Nadcap meeting is coming up in February, right? 24th to the 27th.
Yeah, it's going to be in Garden Grove.
It's going to be over in California. So that's an unusual meeting. They don't normally have them here in the U.S. So they'll have one in California in February, and then you'll do another one probably around the June timeframe?
Yeah, I think it's in Spain, Madrid.
Yeah, Madrid in June, yeah.
And then they do the October one in Pittsburgh.
Yeah.
Joanna, did you have something to say?
Yes, I have a couple of things to say. The first one is, during the Globalization Committee meeting, there was discussion about how can we leverage AI as it relates to modernizing audits, and there was a sub-team formed for that. So that kind of, at least NMC is looking at that in some fashion. The other thing I wanted to say was, in addition to attending the task group meeting, please, if you're there, and try and get there. I know Monday is closed for heat treat, but STSTG, which is one of only 2 sub-task groups that exist within PRI or within Nadcap, it's a very informative meeting. It's an opportunity for suppliers to get specific questions answered by the staff engineers, all of whom are present, with the exception of Mark Burville, but all 3 of them were present during the STSTG meeting on Monday afternoon. And if you're going to be there, come join us, because we actually made some significant headway during that meeting in Pittsburgh.
Awesome. That sounds great.
And Joanna runs that meeting, by the way.
She carries the mic with fierceness.
She does. She
Great.
does. She's a force in that room.
All right. Well, any other comments, Bob, Ed, Joanna?
No, that's all I had for today.
Awesome. Well, MTI members, thank you for attending today. I want to tell you, 25 is going to be an awesome, awesome year. I just talked to ITR economics people today. They had their webcast yesterday for MTI, and they're projecting 3, possibly 4 straight years of growth, good growth, which is going to be great. So stay tuned in to MTI. Get your shoes on and start running, because it's going to be a good 4 years, and we're here to help you out. We got workforce development. We have our ITR forecasting. We've got our online training. If you're not doing the online training, you need to jump into it. Yes Management Training Program. We got our new job board for hopefully drawing in new employees to our Jobs of Tomorrow initiative. So lots of resources for you to make yourself better and make your team better. So we appreciate you coming in. And remember, you're not just strong with us, you're MTI strong. Thank you for your volunteerism and everything you do for us. Have a great day.
Yeah,
Great,
take care,
thank you.
everybody. Bye.
Bye. Take care.
Everyone.